Hello and welcome to Flory Models. Here we are with something a little bit different. Yes, I've bitten the bullet. After months, even years of thinking about getting a 3D printing setup, I've decided now's the time to do it. And obviously Amazon had a bit of sale the other day, so I saved around about 220 quid, something else like that. So I've bitten the bullet and I've bought in a 3D printer, curing station and some resin and all the rest of it. Now, before we get going, I just want to make it totally clear, I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. This is literally the blind leading the blind here. I'm just being governed of what I've seen online. I've watched a few people online, seem to know what they're doing, definitely. Obviously, I've got Andy, who sort of knows what he's doing with 3D printing. And obviously, we've got John Best on the forum. He knows what he's doing, so forth and so on. So what I'm trying to do is sort of get into it gradually. So I'm going to show you my path to 3D printing, okay? But again, if you want to find out full details on anything or all the bits and pieces that go with it, please go off and have a look at other people online. There's some great tutorials on YouTube. There's some great people you can follow who know about setting these things up a lot better than I do. Because to be honest, that's all I'm going to be doing is watching their stuff and hopefully getting a feel for it. Do some tests, try and dial it in a little bit, and then hopefully away we go. Again, it's nothing new to 3D printing. We've actually had one from the company for the last few years. We've got a Mars printer over there. It's a little bit older than the one I've got here, and it's got a smaller print bed, but technically it's roughly the same type of thing. But anyway, I've bitten the bullet, we've gone for it. But again, I just want to make sure everyone knows that I don't know what I'm doing, all right? So if you do want to follow along just to see how I get on, that's fine. If you want to see people doing it professionally and all the rest of it, please go off, because I'm sure I'm going to make a million mistakes. I'm new to all of this, never done it before, and I'm sure a lot of you will be screaming at the screen saying you're doing it all wrong. If I am, please let me know. Just tell me, and then obviously I can get on the curve a little bit quicker than making a load of expensive mistakes. And obviously you don't know a lot of this stuff until you're starting to print. So what I've done down in here, we've got the Saturn 2 8K printer. I've got the new water soluble, water washable 3D resin. Apparently it's designed for this particular printer. From what I can tell from everything I read, it's great because it doesn't smell as much as the other ones. Obviously you're not using alcohol either for cleanup because it cleans up just with water. So I'm hoping it's going to be the acrylics of the resin printing world. It might not work. I have got another bottle of normal resin as well in case it doesn't, but I thought we would see how we get on with both of these. Anyway, I'm going to get this lot all unboxed. We'll get it all set up and have a look at it, and then we can go through what we get in the box and a sort of general setup guide. Okay, so there we go. That's all three of them in the set. Also with the curing station and that, you've got a pair of UV goggles, and it looks like you've got a torch. So you can plug this into the power, and you've got a little torch for getting in those tricky places for curing it. Also, the power lead for these two is one, which is quite handy because you don't need like 3 plugs for all this lot. One plug does these two, and away you go as well. So that's actually really, really handy. So all set up, they're all ready to go now. So what we'll do is we'll turn our attention over to the setup and getting this little lump all ready to go. Okay, so we've plugged it in, we fired it up. As you can probably see, there is a fan in here, and it's not quiet, it's quite loud, and it's not doing anything. So I don't know why it needs to have a fan on there. But it's down on this side because I can feel it blowing out. So I don't know if this actually gets quite hot. I assume it probably does from the light coming right the way through. So what we've done, we've reinstalled this onto it. And I did notice one thing. I had to completely undo it. Where it came from the factory, it just sort of holds it on there. But obviously when you want it in, you want it snug right to the back. All right. So when you're looking down on it like this, it's got to come right the way back over this lip. Okay. So that's that one down in there. Then what we want to do, we've got this piece of card here. All right, we want to slide that underneath completely here. We removed all the protective stickers and all the rest of it. And then what we got to do is just loosen up the bolts. You can probably hear it drop there. All right, so that's the bolts all loosened up like that. All right, and then what we're going to do, we press home. And it's going to go down, and it's going to sort of balance itself a little bit. And you can see it working up and down, and that's down in there now. So now you might just need to square it up to make sure you're all square in here. All right, then what we're going to do is we're going to tighten up these bolts, making sure it doesn't move when you tighten them up. So don't put too much pressure downwards on it because I think you crack the screen. But you want to make sure that these aren't loose, because if these come loose, what's going to happen is the build plate will actually be not center and level and all the rest of it. Then we can go up, so we just go up 1 mil. Oh, it's going to go up 10 mil in our case. That's it. And then that way you can get your paper out. So what it's done is it's left the thickness of this card, and I assume it's specifically to it, so that it's the thickness of the actual build underneath here as well. So that's literally how it's done it. You can go in the settings on the front here, and you can actually press and change the height to do it in millimeters, and you can go 1 or 2 millimeters. And I've seen people go around and just do corners to make sure it's level. But technically, if you've got it in there like that, it should be absolutely fine. If you want to redo it at any point, you just go back and press home again. And what it's doing is, that's actually vibrating with the sound of my voice coming off it. But what it actually does is that it sets it as the 0. So it can't go any further down. So it's not going to push down into the screen or anything else. But also it knows exactly how far from the screen it actually is. So if you're actually doing a situation where you're going up in, like, you know, half mils and things like that, quarter mils, tenth of a mils, it knows exactly where it is. So that's technically 0. It can go obviously slightly below that, would be a minus point. Anything above is going to be plus on the axis as well. All right. So literally it's as simple as that. But again, if you want to go back at any point and redo it, all you need to do is just pop in, click home, and it will reset it. I assume when this thing's powered off and all the rest of it, you only have to do that once. It will just remember it from evermore. But it's probably worth going back, checking it every now and again, just to make sure it's okay. So a little bit like your airbrush, just making sure it's exactly how you sort of left it last time. Okay, so now what we can actually do is remove the paper, because we now know it's level. Keep that, because you might need it again, I assume. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to tell this to go up a little bit, just so we can get the print bed in. You can change this in the settings. Instead of going up, like, you know, sort of 5 mil at a time or 10 mil at a time, you can tell it to go up obviously a lot faster, and it will do. There we go. That's going up there nicely. So the thing to remember, and it's something I didn't realise either until sort of getting into this week, is that the film that's in here, there's obviously, you can see the film there, it doesn't last forever. It's a consumable, and you can see it's got the bolts on the bottom. So at some point you're going to have to replace this. I don't know how much they are. Again, it's probably one of those things, wait for Amazon to have a sale, and then you can get some spares. But the thing is, if this gets tarnished, and apparently they go cloudy over time, you can get replacement ones made of different materials, and that, again, that's well above my pay grade. Have a look online for all of those discussions. But basically, that's it. So then this can come along in here then. It fits down over this, because it's got those little feet where it drops in. There is a little bit of wiggle room in there, but then that's why we got these 2 bolts. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to come along with these little bolts, and we're going to secure it down. We've got 1, and then we've got 2. All right, so what basically you're doing, you're securing them to the base, so it's not able to move side to side and nothing's moved. So obviously this is locked, the base is locked. So the last thing you need is to all be moving around and everything else like that. So when you're all happy with it. So there we go. That's in there now, and it is set up technically all ready to go. All right. So again, you can press home again, and it should come down now, and it will stop the precise height that we want it to be. So we set it for that. I think it's 0.3 millimeters for the width of the actual card on here, looking at it. So it should stop it in there. Again, it's got a guide in here, and it is pretty self-explanatory and talks you right the way through all the systems on this one. So again, it's quite, you know, a nice way of going through. All right. So that's in there literally just like that. The carbon filter, obviously we've debagged it and all the rest of it. So that can come in and literally just plugs in the USB, and you've got a green light on the front there. And there's a fan on that. I can feel a fan. So there's obviously a fan underneath blowing up. I assume it's sucking in air and blowing it out the top, which then comes out of here, or it's drawing it through from the top here and out of there. But looking at the system on it, I'm not too sure. But there we go. It's technically all set. There's a max line down the back, and that's the maximum amount of resin you can actually put into it. But apparently, if it does start to run low, you can add to it as you go. So if you notice halfway through your print and you're doing something monster, you're running out, you can tip a little bit more in. And you can tip it on top of the build plate. So I know some people seem to be pouring it from the top over the top of the build plate, and other people just put it straight into the tank here. I don't know. It's probably one of those. People just have their own different ways of doing it. But technically, with that done, That there concludes our build. So you can pop the lid on. All right, so if that had the resin down in there, it's technically all ready to go and print. So last up, we got this little guy here. So this is the little drive for it. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this up onto a nice SanDisk one. I've got a brand new one that obviously these ones being cheap, it can brick the system, I've been told. So everyone has said to me about this, has said, do not use this one apart from the first usage of it. All right. So that just goes down in there like that. If I zoom in a little. All right. So that then comes down into here now. So apparently if we go back up here, you've got the various things. So you've got your manual down in here, and this is your up and down bit to it and all the rest of it. The exposure is obviously, you can change the exposure 15 milliseconds, and apparently you can do that up and down. Again, this is above my pay grade, but technically, depending on the resin you use, it should tell you what type of things this one is and all the rest of it. So it will tell you what it works best at, so forth and so on. So again, that's something we'll have a look at properly in a minute for doing the setup. All right, so again, we can go back on there. The size, that's for setting it up and down and all the rest of it. You've got a stop button, and you've got obviously a tank clean button. The tank clean one, apparently what it is, that's for the tank, the vat, if you like, above it. It just projects all the light onto it to cure it solid, and then you can peel it off. But again, most people say don't do that, just wash it out manually and you'll be absolutely fine with it rather than doing that. Then you've got back, tools, sorry, we've done tools. Then we've got prints. So then on here, I was hoping for, no, system information and all the rest of it on like that. So we go home, print. Now, don't seem to have any print. Just hoping the thumb drive's actually working here, because in theory it should come up with a little thing. Again, hopefully it hasn't bricked my system already, but it should come up with some test prints and things like that in theory. Again, I may be doing something wrong here, or I've missed a step or something else like that. So I will check on that manual. That's just the things about going up 1 millimeter at a time, 10 and all the rest of it. So that should be fine. Back, back, and then those. So again, I'm not sure if this is what people were saying about these drives are absolutely junk. Right, there we go. Now it's working. These drives are junk. All right. So to see, you can see some different ones down here. So these are obviously little different ones you can use. So it's got obviously different files down in here. So again, you've got different details. I think that's I'm going to go back. And then down in here, we should have one that says, there we go. We've got some rooks here. So we got some rooks, and then obviously you can do a test print with these rooks. So technically you would go print on this. We haven't got any resin in there to actually do it yet, so we're not going to. And also I want to check a few things. I'm going to watch a few more videos just to make sure I have got everything right on here before we say print. But technically we will do it. I'll pop some resin into this, and then we'll come back and see how it's done it by just doing this. But again, it's just one of those ones where I'm learning just as much as you are, and I want to make sure everything's right before we go ahead and print and things like that. All right. So again, I think what we can do is we'll just go back, and that's all the systems. Again, on this little flash drive, when we put it over to the computer, you can then actually, and we'll have a look at that, you've got all the software needed for doing this. So again, it's a slicing tool. Obviously, see it like a bit like a MRI scanner. It slices everything up so you can see right through it, but also it's the layers it's printing. So again, that's the software to do it. I'll do a little short tutorial on that one. Again, I'm by no means an expert onto it, but hopefully it will show you what supports its needs. Because again, it gets confusing now, because some stuff you can print like these guys straight off the bat and away you go. Other ones you need to actually, you know, put support structures into them, and it just makes sure they came out crisp and everything in fine little detail areas. So think of it as little scaffolding supports that hold up the parts. Otherwise, if they're just there in thin air, they could obviously sag and droop as it's trying to print them if it's building onto those layers. So by putting supports in there, it holds them up and keeps it all nice. You might have seen lots of them where they take them off and then crunch them all off. I don't know how easy that is. But again, that's some stuff that I know some of the fourth stuff I want to do, we're going to need lots of supports because it's quite complex stuff as well. So anyway, I'll be back in a minute. We'll get some resin into this one and we'll do a test print. Okay, so this particular one I've bought here is the water-soluble 8K stuff, as you can see here, and it's in space grey, whatever that is. It came on a deal, to be honest. All right, so we're just going to mix that up. Then, again, protective, we're in glove mode now and all the rest of it. But again, this is water-soluble, so I'm hoping that it's a little bit easier to deal with than, you know, perhaps some of the other ones out there, which are a bit more gnarly. So again, we've got the, see, look, we're dripping it everywhere already. You can see how messy this gets. So again, making sure you're all good. So you've got a fill line at the back. So what we're going to do is pour it into there. And again, don't forget, you reuse this as well. So you can probably go as much as you need. I don't know how much we need in here. I don't think we're going to need tons of it. So we'll just stop there. Make sure you keep the lid on this and in a darkened cupboard as well, because obviously, don't forget, light activates it. So you want to keep it in the dark, so to speak. All right, so that's all in there now. So now we're going to go home again. This should come all the way down. And again, I can smell it. It's definitely got a bit of a whiff to it. The actual resin. I don't know what it smells like compared to normal, because I haven't used that yet. This is just the water-soluble stuff. That's going to go down into the bed. A couple of little bubbles. All right, so that's in there now. So with that in, I think what we'll do is we'll pop the lid on, because then hopefully that'll stop the smell, or definitely limit it a bit. All right, then we're going to go back. We're going to go back. We're going to go print. We're going to go to these files. You can remember that we're going to go on the rooks. So we're all there now. And then obviously just down in here, we've got print. So we're just going to go print. So there we go. And that's it. It's doing it. So it has got some information down on here. So it's saying it's going to take all the different bits in here. So it reckons it's going to be, what's that, 2 hours 15? So we will see how that goes. So it's literally just 20 past 3 now, and we'll see how it goes. So again, this is my first time with it, never done it before. And obviously, oh, that's it, it's done one layer. So again, this is just from what I've heard. The first layer, the lighting system, so it shoots up this light through there. The first layer is like 0.35 seconds. After that, it's like 0.1 of a second each layer as it goes up. And I can see it going up and down, traveling up and down, hopefully as you can. So again, it's now on layer 2. So I don't know with the first few layers, I think it takes a little bit longer to go. All right, so what we'll do is we'll just make sure it does a few, and then to be honest, I'll leave it to it. And then we'll come back, see how smelly it is, in all honesty. I'll shut the window there, and we'll just see in the sealed room how much it sort of smells. Do you need a full-on extractor and everything else to it? But you've got a little picture down here as well, and you can see exactly how it's going and what it's doing. But don't forget, it seems like you used a lot of resin, and it's not cheap, but then hopefully you can just reuse this resin. Now, I'm acutely aware this could fail as well, because obviously you don't know what's going on until it's come up. But apparently you can pause it, and that way it'll lift it. You can see if it's okay, and then send it back down to make sure your build is good from that initial stage. Because obviously if you're building something really tall, and then you find out that actually the first few layers have failed, you don't want it to be messing up and using all your resin how you go. So there we go. It's on level number 4 now. And working its way through on those ones. So again, we're going to leave it, let it go in. We'll come back in around about half an hour and see how it's getting on. Okay, so we've been printing now for the last, what are we, 31 minutes. All right, I said it was going to take 2 hours 15. Sorry, it's 3 hours 15. I couldn't see the screen exactly well. I could take off that protector. Now we know it's working. All right, so it looks really good. Apparently, I was just watching a thing on YouTube. It's got a pause, and if you pause it, it will lift the bed up, and you can make sure that it has stuck to the build plate. Because the most important thing about 3D printing is getting that first couple of layers crisp and nice, obviously, onto the build plate. Now, the build plate is obviously upside down, so it's printing it. Obviously, the bottom is the top and is going to come up from it. So you want to make sure it's stuck. So we're going to template here. We're going to press pause. And hopefully, it will lift it right out and we can see, hopefully, if it's got anything on the bottom of it. So this way you can actually have a look. Oh, we have. And see, I don't know how well you can see. I don't know if we can take it off. Probably you can't see it, but it has definitely got 2 rooks appearing. Then we just go play again. And then hopefully this then just goes back down into the vat and carries on printing. So to be honest, I don't know why. I thought the first print, you might get 1 good one, but it's doing 2 rooks that come off, which actually I can give you a thing, look just like this, because this is from the one that is obviously at PM Store, which is the Mars. This is the Saturn, so this is the Mars. So it's got ELEGOO Mars written on this one. But again, I'm hopeful that it's going to come out just as nice as this. So anyway, we will leave this now until the end of the print, which will be in approximately, what are we saying here, 2 hours something or other, 2 hours 50 odd minutes. So yeah, 2 hours 56 minutes to go. We'll see how it goes. Smell wise, I'm being honest, yes, you can smell it. If you're not used to the smell, I think you would smell it. But I've been sat here watching this for the last half an hour. I was watching a couple of videos on it, and yeah, it's not unpleasant. It's not as bad as I was expecting. It's definitely not as bad as using lacquer thinners or lacquer-based paints. Those stink, you know, you can proper smell those. But again, I don't know if that's anything to do with this is the washable, obviously resin, or if it's that filter. I don't know, because again, I've got nothing to compare this to because I haven't been around when one has been printed in normal alcohol-based resins, shall we say. So it will be interesting to see. So what I'm going to do is, there's no point hanging around for this. I'm going to go off and do other things. We'll let this just carry on in the background, doing its bit up and down. And then hopefully we'll come back in around about 2 hours time and we should be getting it finished off. Once it's done, we'll give it a quick clean up and into the lighting area. I'll show you that one. And then the exciting thing will be is going off and getting some of our big projects we've been working on in the background here for the last couple of weeks. And we'll do some test prints of them as well. Okay, just had a bit of food, come back after dinner, and it looks like we are complete. Got a little message down here at the bottom saying, glasses, it says printing done, time elapse, it was 3 hours 26 minutes. So we have a look in here. Hopefully you can see, there they are hanging below here, looking quite good, I must admit. So what we need to do now is obviously get it over to the cleaning station, all the rest of it. Now this is the water soluble one, so in theory it doesn't actually matter. All right, but I can see lots of texture and detail in there. It looks like it's come out really, really well. So what I'm going to do is, because I need to get the wash station set up and everything that goes with it, I will get that sorted and then we'll come back in a second. Okay, so I'm going to have to sort of do this a little bit in stages because I haven't got enough room here. So we need to get this over here and into this one. So first of all, we've just got here, this is obviously because it's the water soluble stuff. Obviously, we're just going to, hopefully this fits in here. Which actually I think I've got the wrong bit on. Hold on, we've got the bit the wrong way round, which is a bit of a pain. All right. So again, this is one of those things, you need lots of room and space. Obviously I'm doing it on my desk. So I've got I think I've got the element thing the wrong way round here. So what I need to do is pop this thing out. This one, there we go, it fits in, doesn't need it because obviously this has got a bigger build plate. So this is all fully water soluble. So as you can see, it's down in here and it's completely submerged. All right, so I don't think the lid is going to fit on for a minute. I don't know if it doesn't quite fit. So a little bit of a design fault here. But again, this is just something where obviously it's the water soluble stuff. I don't know how much splashing about this actually makes. All right, so the resin itself can be using those filters, or you can buy extra filters. It's just going to get poured straight back into the container, which we'll do in a moment. So this literally just sits in here. And again, we'll just give it a gentle slosh. All right, and what I'll do is, I was hoping I could put the lid on and just bung it on here and away we go, but clearly not. So anyway, let's just, hopefully this won't make a massive, massive mess, but you never know. Just get rid of those couple of drips of resin. So we've got our cleaning station. We'll plug him in. This then hopefully goes on the top like this. This is where we get covered in everything because it's more thingy. Oh, hello. Doesn't seem to work. Let's try the other one. Houston, we have a problem. Okay, so we just found the problem. It turns out you have to press and hold, which there we go. So fine. So we're going to give this, I don't know, 1 minute. So you see, it's making a whirlpool, if you like. So down in here, we've got a spin and it's going around. I've taken the cage out because obviously they're stuck to the build plate. Oh yeah, got bits all in the water now where it's obviously making it work. So I don't know how long this actually takes. Again, if you were using the real resin, the alcohol-based ones, you're going to actually have this going for a couple of minutes as well. Oh, it goes one direction then the other. All right, so, but it's obviously alcohol-based, so you're going to have a vat here of IPA to do this, or, you know, obviously 99% rubbing alcohol, something else like that. And then that way it swills all the water in all the bits and it gets all the unset resin all the way off. Then we have to let it dry. And then once we've dried, we can move it over here into the actual curing chamber. Now this is just full of LED lights. And then what happens is obviously that actually sets the actual resin itself. And there we go. See, simple when you know how, hey. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this. We're going to pour this resin back into the bottle, keep it clean, and then obviously we'll wash out the tray under the tap, warm water, and then obviously this can now start to air dry. So in theory, I know we're going to make a huge mess now, but hopefully you can see there are our little rooks all done. All right, so that's pretty good going. Again, I have got some baking trays and various bits and pieces. I've got some silicone ones, nice and floppy, so they clean up easy. But actually, the water-soluble stuff, the faceplate, is absolutely clean. All right, it's going to need a little bit of a wipe afterwards. But anyway, very, very happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just leave it like that just for the moment. I'm going to get some kitchen roll, paper towels, bits and pieces down for that. We can let this air dry, and then once it's air dry, we can move it in the lit container. Again, I think you need to let them totally air dry first. Otherwise, what can happen is when you put them into the actual chamber, if there's water still on it, it can burn it and you end up with white marks. Not a problem if you're going to paint it anyway, but if you're not, it won't do it. But anyway, that seems to have worked out absolutely fantastic. So I'll clear all this away, we'll make some room, and then obviously we'll get them off the actual base plate, dry them out, and then we're ready for curing. Okay, so we've cleaned it all up. We've got a load left in there. To be honest, I didn't realise how much we were actually going to have. One thing I can say about the cleanup is, one, you just got to get yourself prepared. Luckily, I'm water soluble, and you know, obviously down on here it doesn't really matter. But you don't want this resin going anywhere. And if you had obviously the alcohol-based ones, you know, which works like lacquers, that's just awful. In fact, I'm definitely, I think, going to stick with the washable because it's just so easy to clean out that bed. We tipped it back in there through the filter, made a complete mess trying to get it through the filter. I do need a big funnel, sit the filter in the funnel, then do it. Quick tip. All right. And then obviously the big thing is just washing out the actual tray itself. If you're doing it in IPA and rinsing it around, oh, that's going to be awful and really messy. So I highly recommend using the water washable stuff. It just seems quite straightforward and it does rinse away totally clear. I went around all the stuff with a paper towel afterwards, bit of kitchen roll, spotlessly clean, no problem at all. And I don't feel icky or anything else like that. Obviously I was wearing gloves through that entire process. Now comes the tricky bit, and to be honest, I've been fighting with this. You probably see I've got a couple of marks on the build plate, which hopefully won't make any difference. But trying to get these off the build plate is an absolute nightmare. So what I'll do is I'll just put something here. We got our little blade that they supplied. Okay, so it has got an edge on it. We're just going to sit it down in here. And it's one of these things. I was being obviously far too gentle in trying to work it, and I've scratched the build plate. So obviously you just get it down in here and then a nice short, sharp tap and it comes off. All right, so that's where we've got them completely off there now. And again, we've got our little plate. I'll give this a little bit of wash in a minute just to do that one, but there we go, it's fine. Hopefully those scratchings don't make an issue or a problem. But anyway, that worked really, really well. All right, the wash station, now I know what I'm doing with it, works really, really well as well, because I had a bit of a go with it. I took it all out in the kitchen, cleaned it all out in there, tried it again, works an absolute treat. So what we are left with now is these little guys. All right, so again, they're still tacky to the touch because they need to be cured yet, but you can probably see how well they've come out and looking. There's a little bit of moisture still in them, and I do believe we're supposed to let these air dry before we attempt anything else, but you can probably see there's a spiral goes through the middle of that, a spiral staircase, and there's like a cable rolling through it. The level of detail is amazing. It's supposed to have these holes in it. That's not a fault because I thought that, but they've both got them. And they're in the same place as well. So obviously the holes are there to drain, I assume, or something. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're just going to let them dry for a little bit. Then we can pop them over into our little cure station. So this works exactly the same way as the other ones. We'll come along, we'll pop them in. You just press the little button. It beeps, fires up, and then you can set your desired timer. And again, you'll have to look at the type of resin you're using, and that'll give you what the curing times are and the light force and all the rest of it. I don't know, so I'm sort of winging it at the moment. But basically then you just pop that in there, press go. You can see the lights. Obviously it's all protected in here, and it has got a safety feature. So if you lift off the lid, it does stop. All right, I won't do it because we don't want to break it. You can pause it at any time. Just press pause, come along, and then obviously you can take it out here. You might notice down in here as well, I think I've got resin on the buttons over there. I have to check that. But you can see you've got lights here as well. So as it rotates on the table, you've got lights all down the side and from the bottom, and obviously it'll bounce around inside there to do it. So I don't know if it actually makes any difference. So what we'll do is we'll just stick them in and we'll see what happens. So we'll put one in. If it goes horrendously wrong with one, then we know we're in trouble. All right, so we can put the top on, hit go. And you can see it doesn't whiz round. It's quite slow, but it definitely does the trick. So it's a really, really, really slow process on this one as it goes round. How long is it left in there? I don't know, because like everyone, I'm a bloke and I'm not reading the instructions. We're just sort of going from what we've seen on YouTube and, you know, we're just going for it. What can I say just off the bat, though? Brilliant. I'm amazed. Obviously, one of the biggest things I thought with 3D printing is a bit like alchemy, getting the settings right and curing things. I've done like we do with a lot of airbrushes when we say to you, use their paint, you know, so use the paint with a thinner. I'm using their ELEGOO resin here with an ELEGOO resin printer. So obviously it's designed for it. It's in the software. It's listed under names and things like that. So from that point of view, I think it's going to work really, really well with it. The only thing I would say is, like I said before, if this was the old-fashioned stuff, which is obviously IPA based, that's the only way you can clear it up, or rubbing alcohol, it's going to be really, really messy. You need to make sure you're prepared for the amount of mess is going to come along. Make sure you've got plenty of gloves. Make sure you've got plenty of paper towel. Make sure you've got surface free. Clearly, I haven't, because look, I've got the Harrier behind me. I've got stuff all down in here as well. I've got nowhere really to do it. But obviously, I wanted to show you this firsthand exactly how I've done it. So that's why I didn't want to sort of mess around too much and, you know, do it off air and then come along and sound like a pro. This is genuinely the first thing I've ever done. It's the first time I plugged it in. Well, as you can tell, I didn't even know how to turn it on. But there we go. But again, it's one of those things where the more you do this, the more you learn it. It's going to be practicing. I'm sure you guys will be throwing me tips and a bone about what you need to do and different things that can improve it and stuff like that. You know what I'm like, guys. I know nothing. I'm like a sponge at this point. Tell me everything. You know, even if you think, oh, he probably knows it, I guarantee I don't. So, but even if I do, I'd rather be told twice than not at all. I'm great at this type of thing. I really am receptive to it all. I'm not blinking, or I'll do it myself, because I definitely don't know best about this at all. Again, disclaimer, I know nothing. I am literally an idiot who's clearly got 500 quid to burn and thought, do you know what? The company can afford it. Thanks to you guys. So we can do some 3D stuff. What I'm really looking forward to be honest with you, is working on other stuff and obviously design processes and stuff like that as well. So this is hopefully the beginning of a journey where we'll be incorporating 3D printed parts into my kits. You know, obviously we're working with stuff with John at the moment with the Harrier. Again, it's one of those things where, you know, I don't have a first clue where I'm going. I'm learning off the guys, and hopefully I can learn off you as well. And in the meantime, you guys who are following along a little bit on the fence, do you need a 3D printer? Is it worth it? You know, hopefully you can take a little bit from this as well. Ooh, it says it's done. I don't know if it is, but anyway, we'll just have a look for our final little report. Oh, yeah, it's rock hard. Already, that's really, really weird, because when you touch this one, this is sticky. It feels sticky. This one is completely rock hard, just like a chess piece. So here we go. This is the final results of how far we're going to go today with it anyway. Tomorrow I'll be printing again. But here you go. So if we zoom right down, we can have a look at the proper details in this. Hopefully the camera will play ball. All right. So just for the benchmark, this one here is the one that Matt sent me down from, as you can see, our ELEGOO Mars printer. And it looks like this. All right, so you can see it looks really, really nice. We've got writing in there. We've got that cable, as you can see, runs through the middle. Absolutely fine. Very, very nice again. And then we've got this one. The first thing I noticed is, you might notice as well, you see down in here, I grab my glasses, you might notice just down here at the bottom, this bottom row of tiling, this one down in here is not very sharp. This one's definitely more defined down in here. So again, it's just showing a little bit more detail. And again, it could be a million different reasons with the resin and stuff like that. But as you can see, pretty much everything else is as is. It looks just as good, just as crisp. Obviously, we're using different resin. There's a little bit of whiteness on this as well, which I assume it's probably because it's wet. And we need to let it completely air dry before we do this, because it does say it's called burning and it happens with the water molecules. Again, it's not 100%. There's a little bit of something in here. You can see like a delamination just down under here. And again, this is called tearing, I do believe, which is something to do with the speed its printing is. You can see it down in there. And again, these are the little tiny things you need to work out. But honestly, I can, you can see, you can read all the writing in there. You've got the steps, you've got that spiral running through the middle that's completely hollow. It really is very, very nice indeed. Very, very happy with it. And as you can see, very, very little difference. So if you're thinking of a Mars, but side-by-side comparison with the Idiot's Bunch, as you can see, there's not a lot in it. So, it's one of those ones you see there where I've got a little bit more tearing on here than obviously this one over here. This one is the, the IPA-based or alcohol-based one. This here is obviously the water-based one as well, to give you an idea of the differences. But generally, as you can see, really very, very nice indeed. So there you go. We'll leave it right there because clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm well out of my depth with all this, as you can probably tell. So what I want to do is obviously learn about this one, find out, how to stop those little things happening. Is it needing more time? Is it something to do with the resin? There's lots of settings you can play with and stuff like that. So obviously we'll look fully into those before obviously we make any big changes or comments. If we find any information out for you, of course, I'll put it up in the forum. I'll put them in the show notes where appropriate and everything else like that. But there we go. That's the Saturn 2 8K printer with the wash station and curing station. Now I've got to do is find a home for it. And what I'm thinking is I might have the wash stations up here and the 3D printer, because it's actually not that bad a smell. One thing I can be honest with you, it is a very windy day today and I've had the window open, but I haven't had the extractors on and I've had the door shut. When I walk in here, I can't smell it. And yet I'm led to believe it's really icky, smelly stuff. Don't really have a problem with it. So from that point of view, I'm thinking that if it's not as bad as I was thinking, we'll probably keep it in here. If I switch over to using the alcohol-based stuff, then obviously we're going to be putting this down in the unit because apparently it stinks. But again, it may be the filter in there. I don't know. You guys can give me your feedback onto it. I don't know. This is the first time I've ever done it. Never done this before in my life apart from today. I'm really excited about it, as you can probably tell, and I'm looking forward to doing other things with it. But anyway, we will leave it right there. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget, comment down below and we can get more and more of this stuff on the site.